Let's continue the conversation with Brooks Newmark. He's a member of Parliament for Braintree. He joins us live out of 30 Rock this morning. And our guest host for the next hour is Miles Nadal. He is the CEO of MDC Partners. Good to see you this morning, gentlemen.
Great to be here.
Miles, I want to start with you. If I'm a corporate CEO, I'm pretty happy these days. Your CFO can issue a lot of bonds. You can borrow cheap money. Everybody is wooing you. The president is wooing you. The UK is wooing you. Everybody wants your business. But these policies of engagement, so to speak, are different in my eyes. We're seeing growth out of the United States. We're seeing austerity in the UK. Who is being more pro-business? Who is being more accommodating to you, the ever-coveted American corporation?
I don't think it's about who's being more accommodating to us. It's where is the greatest opportunity. And right now, the greatest resilience right now is happening in the United States and then in emerging markets. But, you know, Buffett said, I'm going to make a 10-year bet on America, and the American consumer has rebounded, and the greenback has been the most stable currency. Access to capital is still the very best in the United States. The economic growth happening in the United States is accelerating. So if you had to pick a place for us, we love America.
All right. Brooks, you used to be in business. You used to be a partner at Apollo. I know you can't give me much beside the Cameron line these days, but I've known you for long enough and you're a pretty straight shooter. So based on what Miles says, is the UK's austerity plan the way to keep business, advertising firms, banks, and the like there?
Yes, I mean, I think the headline today with what the IMF said, which is the US has no a credible deficit reduction plan, says it all. The UK does have a credible deficit reduction plan. And the reality is whether it's the Republicans or Democrats, they're both, frankly, tinkering with the edges. America has a severe problem. We in the UK are actually reducing our deficit by 170 billion over the term of our parliament. You, meanwhile, are dealing with a fraction of that. You need to deal with up to $1 trillion to actually begin to have an impact on the structural problem you have with your deficit. And until both parties figure that out, I'm afraid your previous speaker is going to be surely disappointed.
But Brooks, I have a question for you. What do you think is going to impact business confidence? Is it about the deficit, or is it about consumer spending, growth in GDP, and access to capital? I think it's the latter that's going to affect business confidence and business desire to invest and where they're going to put their dollars today.
And you're right, today. The problem is you're dealing with a false dawn. America is hooked on debt. The consumers are hooked on debt. And until people realize that, start actually saving instead of being dissavers. America in recent years have almost been dissavers. Savings rates have dropped dramatically. If you look at China today, savings rates are up to like 36%. In America, they are at historic lows. People can keep borrowing and spending, but the end of the road is nigh. And people have to start behaving differently. Same thing with the U.S. government. Until the U.S. government tackles the debt deficit properly and begins to live within its means, which it is not doing, and continues to raise borrowings. Borrowings are about to hit 14 trillion, which is astronomical. They're talking about raising that debt ceiling. That, to me, would be a big mistake. Obama's got to be tough, but with an election less than 2 years away, I doubt it.
Look, I don't disagree that they have to tackle the deficit, but your facts don't bear out. Consumer balance sheets are in the best shape they've been in since 2007. Savings rates have doubled. The corporate balance sheets in America are in the best shape ever. There's $3 trillion of excess cash on the balance sheets of corporations in America. So I actually think there's been more conservatization of both the personal and the corporate balance sheet, and they're in better shape than ever before. I agree that the $14 trillion ceiling for government has to be dealt with, but I actually think consumer and corporate balance sheets are in better shape, and I think people have prepared themselves for the difficult environment that they faced, I think with great responsibility.
Well, I'm afraid that may be on a gross basis, but you look at small businesses today in America, small and medium-sized businesses are struggling. The banks, which have been told to shore up their balance sheets, increase their liquidity are actually not lending to small businesses and medium-sized businesses. Small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of America, not big corporations. And that's where America's growth is going to be coming from the future, not big business, but small and medium-sized businesses. And that's where the challenge really lies. And I think if you drill down a little bit more and look at the SMEs in your country, they, I'm afraid, are struggling.
Yeah, and certainly the debt to GDP is obviously ballooning. Some say we have to tackle that growth first, and a lot of that money, though, is offshore, and President Obama has urged CEOs like you, I should note, to repatriate some of that money. But
the problem I was going to say, though, is the issue about lending to small business is a global issue. It's not an American phenomena, okay? It's a global phenomena. Financial institutions right now are conservatizing their balance sheets. They're not lending to small business on a global basis. That's not specific to America. It's specific to the entire world.
Yeah, there's two comments. First of all, Brooks, to you, I mean, unfortunately, deciding to deal with a deficit, taking the decision we're going to do something about it is only half the issue. You've then actually got to deliver. And it seems to me delivering budget cuts is even harder than deciding how you're going to do it.
So let me give you an example.
Because bureaucracies get in the way. Can you actually rely on the bureaucracy, a civil service bureaucracy, to cut itself in an effective manner? It's not, a company can do it very effectively. I don't trust the civil service to be able to deliver.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But in order to do that, you actually need leadership. Leadership in the UK, as you know, comes with a single-party system, or in our case, a coalition. We can deliver change. We are talking, as you well know, talking about cutting $108 billion, that's about $170 million, from our budget deficit in order to live within our means. We got a gold star from the IMF. I'm afraid the US, which is tinkering around the edges, really, in order to match what we're doing in the UK, needs to cut $1 trillion from its deficit. It is not doing that. It is arguing and tinkering around the edges. The second problem it has is its ballooning debt. It's got to deal with structural deficit, and it's got to deal with ballooning debt. And those are the two problems I think America faces today. And I doubt this afternoon, when President Obama speaks to the American people, he deals in the right way, where the IMF changes its mind from what it has said this morning about the USA.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see what he says. Miles, I just want to pick on one thing you said about the strength of the US consumer. How much have they been aided by tax rebates and that sort of thing, and money from the government, which surely cannot continue? And how much are they going to be squeezed by inflation of food, clothing, energy, all that sort of stuff? How much of real income is going to be squeezed? Because companies have got fat balance sheets because they haven't had to pay their employees any more money.
Well, look, there's two things. First of all, we talk about deficits. The deficit issue has been there for 50 years, okay? It's been an ongoing challenge, and everyone has always questioned whether or not U.S. deficits could be sustained. What we're missing is the most important thing, and that's growth of the economy and growth in GDP. We're expecting 3 to 3.5% sort of GDP growth this year, all right? You don't have an inflation issue currently. Inflation's going to be most adversely, if there's going to be an inflation issue, it's when there is labor pricing power. Right now there is not. And so, to me, I don't see big inflation on the horizon. I see commodity prices increasing, but at the end of the day, there is not a big increase in inflation, certainly not on the horizon. Mr. Bernanke doesn't see it. And I think that's factored in.
Most folks do see it when they go to the supermarket, when they fill up their gas pump. And many people see it not only in the United States, but in the UK, and they say that central banks are just making that worse.
But the economy, though, can support $135 oil, okay? There's no question in the short term, because of the uncertainty of what's happening in the Middle East, you've got $5 gasoline at the pumps. But it seems to be still being absorbed reasonably. I think that is a short-lived situation. I don't see long-term that happening. But right now, on an overall basis, you know, house prices are still very deflated, okay?
Well, that's the other problem with the Fed stepping in. It seems to be a win-win, at least for right now. When the economic data is good, that's good, means the economy is good. If not, the Fed is there anyway, so
but that's not true. But QE2, by the way, never benefited the consumer. It was good for confidence, but it was not really a stimulus for the economy. It was good for the investor. And so I don't see that anything that's transpired has increased consumer confidence in terms of spending. I think that's just the resilience of the American consumer.
All right, well, we'll continue the conversation. You stick around for the entire hour. Miles Nadal. Brooks Newmark, great to see you. As always, thanks so much for joining the conversation. We'll have to have you back.